week, we're talking about the weekly review. The weekly review is something that I do every single week. Now, I do mine on Sunday, but it might make sense for you to do it for whichever day is your prep day. So if there's a specific day of the week that you use to do laundry, get ready, do your grocery shopping, meal prep, whatever day it is for you that you choose to get ready for the week, it could be a Tuesday, maybe a Friday, whatever day you choose. Make sure that you carve out time to do a weekly review. I've created a checklist. If it's something that you're interested in, I'll definitely put the link in the show notes so you can download it as well. But let's dive into what you can do every single week if you only have 5 minutes. Now, first things first, clean up your area. Now, if you have a massive mess, like right now, I just moved into this new office space right down the hall from my other office space, and this place is a bit of a disaster because I didn't plan ahead well enough and order my shelves in time, so things are everywhere. So that's not the right time to say, clean up your area, organize all this stuff. That's not what we're looking for. I'm talking about the stuff that is just on your desk, in your immediate area. Just move everything into a pile. Get all the garbage off your desk, any Kleenex, empty drinks, empty coffee cups, whatever it might be. Clear a path. Make sure that you've got a clean area so when you come into work the next day, everything is tidy and ready to go. Next up, like I mentioned, you want to put everything in a pile. So if you've got a giant pile of paperwork, put it in one pile. Get everything corralled in a nice, neat pile so that way you know where everything is at. Next up is you want to brain dump. So you want to get everything out of your head and onto paper. Now, you might be a digital person. Open up a new task app or open up a Word file, whatever your preferred method, you want to get everything out of your head. Now that's if you just have 5 minutes. So if you have a little bit more time, let's add a couple extra things onto that. So you want to review your previous calendar or planner pages. I keep everything from a daily basis in my planner. So I want to go through the previous day, the previous week, make sure that I didn't forget to do anything. If I did, it needs to go on next week's to-do list. I want to review my upcoming calendar. So I want to make sure that anything that's coming up this week that I know, because a lot of times things have changed. So if you know, I allow people to schedule on my calendar whenever it's convenient for them. So a lot of times I might look at my schedule in the evening and by the next morning it looks completely different because people have scheduled themselves or things have moved around, people have rescheduled themselves. Whatever the case may be, you want to make sure that you're looking at your calendar so you know what's coming for the week ahead. So if you've got a little bit more time, within that additional 15 minutes, you also want to empty your voicemail. Something to keep in mind is that we're not actually doing these tasks during the weekly review. We're just putting them somewhere safe so we know we need to do them. So don't get bogged down if you got 57 voicemails that you're like, there's no way I'm going to get through those within 15 minutes. It's okay. Just go through them, make a note in your planner, notebook, online, wherever you keep your tasks at. Make sure that you're making a note of it so you can come back to it. You want to empty out your inbox. So this is a big one for people, even for me, because I used to be that person that had 70,000 emails just sitting in their inbox because I'm an email hoarder. Keep in mind that if this is something that you're just starting out, don't get overwhelmed by, oh my gosh, I've got so many emails, there's no way I can empty them out in 15 minutes. That's just crazy. That's okay. We're just looking to form this habit of constantly going through, deleting anything from the week that we know we don't need. Most of us get a ton of junk mail every single week in our inboxes. We just want to clear that out. So don't allow yourself to get distracted and realize, oh, I'm going to return this email. Now is not the time for this. We're just going through and emptying things out, making sure we haven't forgotten anything. And if we have, just write it down. We'll come back to it. Now, I visit with a lot of entrepreneurs, and I've realized that a lot of entrepreneurs don't reply to text messages. They look at it. If it's not pertinent, then they just close their phone and it sits there. So you want to go through your text messages and make a note if you need to return any text messages to anyone or if there's something specific that someone's waiting for. Let's jump over to 30 minutes. So if you have 30 minutes for your weekly review, you're going to do everything in the 5 minutes and the 15 minutes like we talked about. But also we're going to add some extra stuff because we're going to add another 15 minutes to make it 30 minutes. So remember that big pile of papers that you put all into a pile during the 5-minute review, this is the time that you want to sort through everything. So just put things in like piles. So maybe some of that stuff that was in that pile was bills that you need to pay, or emails that you need to respond to, or maybe it's stuff that you actually need to file. Put everything where it needs to go with like items. Again, don't feel called to do any of them, just make sure you're sorting them. Next up, you want to write your weekly to-do list. Now, depending on the type of person you are, I like to handwrite this. It just does something to my brain that makes me think of additional things that I forgot about differently than when I create a digital to-do list. But whichever way you're more comfortable with it, just make sure that you're getting all your weekly to-dos written out in whatever form you prefer, paper or digital, doesn't matter, whatever you're more comfortable with. You want to review your waiting for list. So that's something that if you're waiting for someone to get back to you on a project, you want to double check that list. And if you haven't heard from them this week, you want to make sure that you reach out and say, hey, how's it going with such and such? Make sure that you're following up with people so it doesn't get buried, because everybody has so much stuff going on right now. You want to be kind to other people and just say, hey, just checking in. Wanted to make sure that you saw my email from the previous week. Wanted to get your feedback on such and such. One thing that I think is really important is that you review your previous week's to-do list. The reason why this is important is because if you might have forgotten something, you want to make sure that that gets shifted over to this week. So that way, if someone's waiting for something, you're not keeping them waiting for 2 whole weeks. Now we're going to jump over to a 60-minute weekly review. This is the one that I do. And just so you know, if you have downloaded this checklist and you're looking at this and you're like, holy smokes, there's a lot of stuff to do on this list, just know that this is something that I have honed over time. So I'm not doing all these tasks in the 60-minute weekly review just starting out. This is something that I've gotten very fast at. My office is pretty tidy, just have some piles that have accumulated over the last couple days, so it's not giant mounds of paperwork that I'm trying to sift through. It's just gotten easier because I've just kept chipping away at it every single week. So in addition to the 5, 15, and 30-minute list, we're going to add some extra time to make it 60 minutes, but also add some extra tasks. So let's jump into those. First up on the 60-minute list is you want to review your projects. So what I do when I have a huge project is I break it down into tasks. Tasks that are 2 minutes or less, so that way those tasks can get scheduled on my to-do list and get accomplished right away. So I definitely want to check in with my projects list, make sure that does any additional tasks need to be added, make sure that I haven't forgotten anything. I want to make sure that those projects are running marathons side by side, rather than one getting way farther ahead than the other and the other one lagging behind and then just gets thrown out because I'm like, why bother? I'm also going to review my someday maybe list. So that might be a list of things of movies I want to see or courses I want to take or things I want to check in on. I'm looking at that list. For me, 30 seconds or less, just want to take a peek at it, make sure that what's on it is still should remain on it, or if I need to get rid of anything, just get rid of it. This one is one of my favorite things to talk about, and it's called the 43 folders. So if you're not familiar with what this is, it's hanging file folders 1 through 31 and January through December. So what happens is you have your 12 months, then you put your 1 through 31, let's say it's January 1st, you put your 1 through 31 behind January. And every day that you sit down at your desk, you just take a peek in a folder, see if there's anything in there. Is there any invitations? Is there anything that was specific to that day that needed to get done? Now you might be saying to yourself, I do not want a rolling hanging file cart. That just doesn't work for my lifestyle. I don't like it. But you could totally recreate this in Dropbox too, or G Drive, whatever you use. You can create digital folders where you can move emails over, anything that you want to scan because you're going to get rid of paper. You could scan it into those folders and it would still sit there. Reviewing it is the same, whether it's digital or paper. I'm also going to schedule next week's weekly review. Now for me, it's always on Sunday, but the time might vary. If you have the opportunity to have it the same time every single week, that's definitely my recommendation. And most of the time it's that way for me, but sometimes it's not. So I want to make sure that that's adjusted because it's super important to me to do the weekly review every single week. Next up, you want to update any software. So you know that one of my first podcasts, if you've been following along, was about digital security. And this is so important because if you're not consistently updating your phone, your computer, whatever it might be, you might leaving yourself open to hackers or gaps in your programs that you don't even realize are there, but the developers have uploaded a software update that you need to do. So super important, make sure that you're doing that software update, and as soon as you click the button, you can go do something else because it doesn't need you to sit there and babysit it. Go review your someday maybe list while your software is updating. This is a big one because I feel like the simplest things often get disregarded because you're like, meh, that's not a big deal. I don't need to do that. But trust me when I say this is a big one. You want to empty your digital trash can as well as your physical trash can. So, making sure that your garbage is empty so the next week when you come back to work, it's ready to go, it's empty, it's not overflowing. This can be a huge deal. I feel like sometimes the simplest things get disregarded, but they can be the most important. With your digital files, making sure that your trash is empty can free up space in your computer. Making sure that the trash isn't overflowing underneath your desk, stinking up your office space, can be a huge shift for you. And I know it sounds goofy, but trust me, just like cleaning up your area, it can make a huge difference. Like I mentioned before, if you'd love to get my checklist and adjust it, make it your own, create anything extra with it, I would love for you to download it. I'll be sure to link it in the show notes for you. I hope that this is able to help you change your business because it has been for me. And I'm excited to share it with you, and hopefully it's something that you can implement into your regular schedule.